All right, thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Jody Holstein. I'm the Executive Director of the Institute of Real Estate Management Greater Denver Chapter. We've got a number of different competencies and skill levels in the room and online. And so today we're really going to go over a huge amount of information for all of the people who are here. I think a good place to start is to talk a little bit about the Institute of Real Estate Management. The Institute was formed in 1933, and it was formed by a group of men who looked out into the real estate industry, managing property, and said, hey, there has to be a better way to do this job. At the time, the job was not being done with very high ethics. It was a tough time. It was a desperate time. Desperate people often do desperate things. And so they formed the Institute of Real Estate Management, and they said, you know, it's going to matter if you have a good property manager. And there are going to be people out there who are going to want to separate themselves in this market and be known for doing something more. And it's not 1933 anymore, but we still have sometimes some desperate times. We still have property managers out there who don't necessarily do the right thing. And there are a lot of people out there who want to be separated. They want to rise to the top, and they want to be seen as offering a higher level of skill and competency. So there are still reasons for the Institute of Real Estate Management to exist today. So we're going to start with a short video that is going to show you maybe some reasons that you might want to separate yourself by getting a designation. So if you are in the market to be able to be seen as the highest level quality property manager in the industry, then you're in the right place this morning. We're going to talk about what it takes to get your CPM, and there are a lot of steps involved. And often what happens is people will go onto the website and they'll take a look at some of the text on the page and go, this is too overwhelming. I don't have time to learn how then I must learn. It's just too overwhelming. So today we're going to break it down, and we're going to break it down in steps. And this slide here says there's no elevator to success, you have to take the stairs. And so I want you to think about the steps to the CPM as a staircase. And there are reasons we don't make it to the top of the staircase. Have any of you here been to Seven Falls? If you've been to Seven Falls, it's up in Colorado Springs, and it's a tourist trap, I know, but I've been there many times. Great place to take the family. They have two areas that you can go up the staircase. One of the areas is not next to a waterfall. It's about 156 steps up. You go onto a landing, great view, but there's an elevator on that one too. And I have to admit, I took the elevator on that one up. Beautiful view. And from there, you can see Seven Falls. And next to Seven Falls, there is a 256 step staircase. At the base, there's about 20 rocking chairs for those people who don't want to take the staircase. You can just sit down at the bottom and enjoy yourself. And for a lot of people, that's the choice they make. The day I went, I was with my grandson, who was 7 at the time. He goes, Grandma, you have to go up this staircase with me. Now, this staircase is narrow. 2 adults can't pass on this staircase. It goes straight up, and there aren't places to really rest. But as I was looking, there was a little landing about 1/3 of the way up that was kind of like this right here. And on this little landing, I'm thinking, okay, Carter, I will go up to the little landing, and then Grandma's coming back down to a rocking chair. And we get up there, and I'm needing to rest. I'm glad there was a little landing. And my grandson looked at me and he said, Grandma, you've come this far. You have to go to the top with me. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to have to go to the top, aren't I? And I made it to the top. Your CPM journey is very much like that. You're going to have to go up the staircase, and along the way, you're going to need some support. You're going to need some people who are going to go, no, you actually can do this. And you're going to need to make sure you don't stop and rest too long. I will tell you, when you stop and rest and say, you know what, I'm not going to take another course for another 2 years, you won't make your way to the top. So you have to gain momentum, and you need help along the way. And hopefully at the end of this presentation, you're going to have a sense of, gosh, I'm going to make it to the top of this staircase. And when I do, I'm going to really appreciate all the help I've had along the way and the time I was able to do it in. So keeping with the step theme, we're going to move along, and I am going to break down the steps to get your CPM into different categories. The first category is education and testing. Second is experience. Third is candidacy. Fourth is approvals and other things. That's like our kitchen junk drawer. And last but not least, money. We're going to talk about actual money. What is it going to cost for you to do this? So as we move through this, if you have a question, I'm going to ask that you write it down, because I'm going to break it down into categories, but in your brain, you're going to be going, hey, I realize she's talking about step number 4, but I have a question about step number 92. And if I answer those questions, it's going to be like trying to climb that staircase going like this. So write your questions down, And at the end, if I haven't answered your question at some point going through all of this data, we'll answer your questions then. This way, when you leave, you'll have great clarity around what the process is, what the categories are, and you won't be confused by me bouncing back and forth. So, we're going to start with education and testing. Education is the foundation for any designation, and the CPM, Certified Property Manager designation, is no different. The education is really equivalent to getting a master's in property management. I don't say that lightly. The University of Denver actually uses our materials to teach their real estate class. So these are well-regarded materials. When you look at the list of courses, it can be a little overwhelming. When am I going to have time to take all of these classes? You might be surprised at how quickly this can be done. As we look through these classes, I want to tell you that for most people, a 2-year program is really optimal. 2 years you can get your CPM education out of the way. What we found is if you spread that out any longer, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years, the odds of you finishing get less and less and less because life gets in the way. So think of it in terms of 2 years. I'm going to break it down in 2 years, but if in your mind you're going, my God, I can't do it in 2 years, don't be overwhelmed. There is no limit to the time you personally have to take to get your classes done. All right? So the first class is going to be budgeting and cash flow and reporting. And recently, Irem recommended that all students take this class first. This class is offered online, or it is offered in the classroom. We don't offer it in the classroom here in Denver, primarily because most students want to take it online, and there isn't enough live students to warrant a class. So we recommend that that class be taken online. We are told that if you wanted to dedicate a weekend to taking that class, that you could absolutely get that class done in a weekend. And if you've got property management experience, you absolutely could get it done in a weekend. Now, I'm saying that as an empty nester. I could get it done in a weekend. It really depends on what your lifestyle is. It really depends on what other obligations you have. I remember when I told someone that they could get this done in 2 years, and she looked at me and she goes, 2 years? I'm going to have that done in a year. And she came back to me in about 8 months and said, so I was naive, but you know, she also had a family, other obligations, so you do have to be realistic. So first, you're going to take the budgeting and cash flow. Then you're going to take your marketing and leasing strategies. And the marketing and leasing strategies course is offered specifically for the different industry segments. So you can take it for either retail, multifamily, or office. Because the CPM is the only property management designation that covers all types of property management. Once you've taken marketing and leasing, then you take leading a winning property management team. That's the human resource class. And then you take managing maintenance and property risk. All of these classes can be taken in a weekend, but Irem gives you 6 months. So once you decide, I'm going to take this class, I'm going to take it online, you will have 6 months to complete the class. So those are the first 4. Those are really the building blocks, the foundation of the education program. If you're someone who's been in the property management industry a long time, you may even find that these are a little elementary, a little common sense, but they're great reminders. And because the final testing is really built around these principles, it's great to go back and review. Then we get kind of into the bigger stuff. I'm going to talk about the asset management track. That's financing and loan analysis, performance and valuation, and asset analysis. We call it the asset management track because those three can be taken at the same time in the classroom. And Denver hosts that course every year. It's a full week. After each segment, there is a test online. And we recommend that you take it in the classroom. It's offered online. You can take this course online, but in the time I have been with Irem, which is over 7 years now, I have never heard a single individual say, I am so glad I took this class online. I have always heard people say, how in the world can anyone take it online? It really is an interactive class, and the principles that they go over in the asset track are crucial to then moving on to the next phase. So if you're not comfortable with the asset track, you're probably going to struggle with the next phase. So take it in the best fashion, which is actually in the classroom. So that's 1 week. And then the next is the management plan and CPM exam. Those are done at the same time as well, and we call that the capstone track. The capstone is 1 week. You spend 2 days in review, and then you spend 2 days actually writing a management plan. And Irem made some changes. I want to say it was about 15 years ago that they made the changes. They used to require that each person getting their CPM designation would have 1 year to write their management plan. And they would go back to their office, they would find a property, they would do all the research, and they would write a management plan. And what they found was that they had a whole host of people that had gotten all the way through all of their education and were completely stalled out at handing in their management plan. It didn't work. So they created the capstone track as a solution for that. When you take the capstone track, you select which part of the industry you are in, and they give you a case study scenario. In that case study, it are all the details that you need in order to create a management plan. So in essence, they do the research for you. This is very important because as one teacher, one instructor said, how often is one of your customers going to say, you know what, I need you to do a management plan. Could you get that back to me in a year? Mm-hmm. They're not going to say that. So 2 days is actually more of an industry standard for turning around something like that anyway. And if you're competent, if you're the cream of the crop, if you're the top of your industry, you should be able to do a management plan if you've got all the research and data in front of you in 2 days. After you complete your management plan, there's the CPM exam. That's the 5th day of the capstone track, and that takes 4 hours. And that is a 100-question multiple choice exam. It's open book, and that could be to some people's detriment. I remember hosting this years ago, and a woman came in and she had a dolly. And she brought every single book she had gotten over the course of all of these tests with her. She says, it's open book. Well, you still only have 4 hours. So I would say if you're leveraging your books, you might not be ready to take the exam. But it is open book. It is done in a classroom. It is done with a proctor. So no one is in the room while you're writing your management exam or your management plan or taking your exam. Nobody's in the room that can help you. If I were in the room, I couldn't help you. But nobody can help you. So you've got to know your stuff at the point where you get up to this CPM exam and the management plan. Last on the list here is ethics. You can actually take the ethics course at any point during your education. Ethics is done in the classroom. There's been some question, I think there's question every year at the national conference, should we allow this online? I help co-facilitate the ethics course, and it is amazing to me the discussions around ethics that happen. The first time I sat through the ethics course, I thought, isn't all this just common sense? No, evidently it's not. So when you sit in a group with your peers and you start talking about things, have ifs, ands, or buts, and how do you manage this, and what do you do here? It could cost you your job, and all of these things. It's so to see what comes out of those very subjective discussions. Because Irem is one of the few organizations that takes ethics to that next level. They actually hold their property managers accountable. You are accountable for your ethics. And once you become an Irem member, that's all you have to do is become an Irem member, not necessarily a CPM. But once you become an Irem member, you are bound to the Irem Code of Ethics. If you break that code of ethics, anyone can turn you into Irem. Not just another CPM, anyone. And when that happens, there is a process by which Irem looks at what is happening, and Irem then decides whether or not you can keep your designation, and to what degree they're going to inform the world that you lost your designation. One of the few organizations that still holds that as a key principle, which dated all the way back to 1933. So that is the education and testing. If you do the first 4 the first year, do 1 a quarter. And then in the second year, take your asset track and your capstone. It is possible to do it in 2 years. We recommend that you don't let your asset track get too far away from your capstone. With respect to that thing most college students know is cramming, keep that information as together as possible in your brain so that you can leverage it. I've known people who have taken the asset track and they're now 3 or 4 years out from having taken that class, and their confidence is shot to go now and take that capstone. They still offer the capstone to be done in your office and give you a year to do it. I have never personally known anyone who's been successful that way. Most people make a couple mistakes when they do that. The first thing they do wrong is they put way too much information in the management plan. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages get turned in that no doubt you've worked really, really hard on. But what happens is in the comfort of your own home, in the comfort of your own office, you tend to get sidetracked and off the details and focusing on things that don't really matter. And so you wind up with a management plan that doesn't answer what needs to be answered and what's going to be graded. I had a gentleman who had some dyslexia, and he thought, I can't take this in the classroom. I need the year, I'll do it, and I'll make sure someone else reads it over for typos or anything like that, and he didn't pass. And he was very upset. He said, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages. And he spoke with the instructor. I said, I really think you need to come do it in the classroom. And he came, he did it in the classroom, passed. He had better focus, he had better direction, he had better guidance. He knew what was expected. So even though they offer the capstone to do it on your own, just don't recommend it. All right, so that is the education. We're going to take a deep breath and say, okay, that sounds like a lot. We're going to move on from that because education is only a little piece. I can't tell you how many calls I get from people who say, hey, I need to get my CPM. I'm looking at getting into property management. Awesome. How many years have you been working in property management? Never have worked in property management, but I want to get into it. Well, we are not just an education designation. That's not how you become the gold standard, is just take a class, pass with an A, now you're the best. There are many other pieces of criteria that are required in order to achieve your CPM designation. Those other pieces can be achieved at the same time you're doing your education. So let's say you don't have the other requirements met. Go ahead and start taking the education, and you can be earning the other requirements while you're taking the education. All right, so we're going to move on, and I want to talk a little bit about classroom learning versus online learning. We have set out some recommendations, but the reality is that there are reasons people like online learning, and sometimes you have to. Fewer and fewer employers are paying for their employees to go out and take a class, and there are people who actually learn better if they're online. That's not me. It's very generational. So those two platforms are offered. Right now, the capstone and the ethics course are the only two courses that are not offered online. All right? Very important. And I would also say I had a woman take our asset track in the classroom at the end of February. And she had been dragging her feet. And she said to me, I had no idea. This is going to change the way I do my job. I can see now how this is going to elevate me to the very top, possibly even past being able to be employed at this employer. It was a pretty amazing recommendation. If you learn differently in a live environment, you can find those other classes in our, really close in our region. You might be able to find a maintenance class that's being given with an HR class in New Mexico or in Las Vegas, in Utah. Those are all on the Irem Greater Denver website. So if you're like, gosh, I wish Denver did those first 4 courses because I don't do well online, go to our website, look under education, and you'll find some really some offerings in the states near us that it wouldn't be too costly for you to go ahead and grab that particular environment. All right? So then we are going to move on, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit here about the fast track. There are other ways to be able to earn your CPM. And Irem honors the education and partnering designations in the real estate industry and doesn't make you repeat education just for the sake of repeating education. So they offer what is called the fast track. The fast track allows you to basically not have to take any of the courses except for the capstone and the ethics course. If you have any of these designations, if you have a bachelor's or master's degree in real estate, or if you have 20 years of experience in property management, you can fast track and only take the capstone and the ethics course. That's a really big deal for some people. But I want you in your mind to go back to the staircase at the very front of the presentation. What this does is it kind of lands you in the middle of the staircase. So you don't have to do any of that. And sometimes that prep work in the first part of the staircase is what you need to get through the tail end of the staircase, especially for our members that represent 20 years of experience, and I've got 2 of those right now. It's important to realize that practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And if you've been doing it for 20 years the wrong way, then you might not do too well on your capstone. I had a call from a woman. She said, I need to get my CPM. Awesome, let me walk you through the process. I walked her through the process. She goes, you mean I have to take classes? I've been doing this for 20 years. I just need to get my CPM because I have a potential client who wants a CPM. I'm going to walk you through how we have to do this, ma'am. She said, I've been doing this for 20 years. You're not going to tell me I don't know how to manage property. Okay. And she did not move forward. The person who made the comment to me several weeks ago, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I had no idea what I didn't know. I had no idea how much farther this education could take me, has over 20 years of experience. So yes, you can fast track. There are certain recommendations that our chapter makes to those that are fast tracking. And we always recommend to a fast tracker that you at least take the asset analysis track. It will prepare you for the capstone. So that is the fast track option. It takes out all of these classes. You no longer are required to take any of these classes. It's a great option, and it really allows achievement in a short period of time. One thing that Irem implemented this last year is if you do fast track, they sign you up for all of these courses online, and you have 6 months to take the courses online, included in your fast track application, which I think is an amazing addition to their platform. So no, you don't have to take them, but we're finding out, yeah, it's kind of a good idea. So that is the fast track. So we'll move on. Anyone can take an Irem course. You actually don't have to be an Irem member to take an Irem course. Anybody can. When you are a member, you get a discount on the rate that you pay to take the course. I will often sit on the phone with members and weigh that out. How many courses are you going to take this year? You know, and if you're only going to take one course, it might not make sense. But if you're going to try and get this done in 2 years, you probably want to be a member. Irem implemented early bird discounts this year. That means if you sign up for your classes outside of a window that they have on their website, you get even a greater discount. So be looking for those early bird discounts. And your credit for your courses doesn't expire. So let's say you take a couple courses this year and something tragic happens, and you need to put things on hold for a couple years, and you don't come back to it for 15 years. Those courses are still sitting there waiting to be credited to your CPM. You do not have to take them over again. So those are just some ways that our members save on the courses, but you don't have to be a member to get started. There are 2 big barriers that we see when our members start looking at education, and we're going to address those because everyone faces at least one of these. The first one is cash. How am I going to pay for this? The second one is time. How am I going to make the time for this? So I am going to address the first one, which is cash. And adds a little bit on time as well. We need to get our employers involved. You need to talk to your employer. Do they have a tuition reimbursement policy? If they don't have a tuition reimbursement policy, do they know what a CPM is? Do they know what kind of business they might be missing out on because they don't have a CPM on staff? Do they know what kind of business they could become if they have a CPM on staff? You have here today, I provided you with this flyer. This is a great piece that you can hand to your employer and say, hey, take a look at this. Let's talk about it the next time we meet. It will allow your employer to get some really good data around why they might want to consider really encouraging their employees to get their CPM. And if they don't pay for tuition, it might be a great place to start talking about them not punishing you when you take a week off for classes. So getting our employers on our side is really important. For some people, that's an easy discussion. For others, it's a really tough discussion. So that is, you got to know where you stand with your employer. The second one is going to be, okay, there we go. Oh, wait a minute. The second one, we were going to talk about cash, is cash, the money. So let's take a moment and talk about where do you find the money for this? Because it can be expensive. How many of you have a savings account that's just for professional development? Mine gets taken for all kinds of things that are not, professional development. It gets taken for the hot water heater. It gets taken for a medical bill. It's just not a reasonable expectation. Irem is very dedicated to offering scholarships. You have to be a member in order to apply for the scholarships. There is a local or a national scholarship available, and I recommend all my members seeking financial assistance start with the national scholarship. I like the national scholarship because you don't have to have any money out of pocket if you get it. That scholarship is handed out every month. We get our applications in by the 15th, and you are notified by the end of the month whether or not you received the scholarship. It will be an amount of money that you can put toward a number of classes, and there is a deadline to using the scholarship. You have to use it in the year that you received it. They receive applications January through September. If you apply in January, you have to make sure that your dues are paid for that particular year. If your dues aren't paid, and for a lot of companies, they don't send out those dues checks until January. If they have not received your dues check, your application will be denied. So January, sometimes even February, is a little tough for those people trying to get scholarships. We want to make sure your dues are up to date. I have only had issues like dues stop a candidate from getting a scholarship. Everyone else has been approved. And every year, Irem makes an announcement. Look, we've got money. Please get your members to apply for scholarships. We've got money. So I always push to that route first. The second route is our local scholarship here in the Denver chapter. The local scholarship is really just a very simple one-page application that is submitted to the board and approved. And that application can be maybe for the amount of money that is still remaining out of pocket after you've gotten a national scholarship. It can be either one of these scholarships can be used either in Denver or anywhere online in the classroom. Our philosophy here in Denver is that we're interested in you getting your CPM in the quickest, most effective way for you. And that may not fit your schedule to come to our class that we're hosting. So if that means you've got to go to Las Vegas or Utah or New Mexico to take your capstone, go with our blessing and our scholarship. So know that when you apply, you have the full bandwidth of any of the courses across the nation to get you where you need to go. All right. So those are the scholarships. I'm going to share with you a video that we produced of a couple members that were so impressed with our scholarship. Irem Greater Denver makes the process of getting a designation easier with scholarships and mentors to guide them every step of the way.
When I initially applied for my scholarship, my employer did not have the funds available to really support me in completing my courses. And at the time that I signed up to begin my CPM classes, I hadn't necessarily been saving up the money needed for the classes. It wasn't until the information session that I knew what really was going to go into this and what all it would take. I would not have been able to move forward with my first class as quickly as I did if I didn't get that scholarship. I filled out one sheet, about why I wanted to do it and what my plan was for continuing it and making sure that it happened. And I think it was about 30 days later that I got an acceptance notice and I signed up for my first class.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, I was able to get both scholarships, the national and the local, and that was incredible help too.
If my employer comes and encourages me to get these designations and says, it's not a financial burden on us as an employer because you can go for these scholarships that we know Irem has. We'll help you get through the application process. It's really simple. It will help with employee retention. It would help with growing their business and their client database. And it's almost a sideways benefit that they can offer to employees that really is no additional expense or cost to them, or minimal cost to them.
Yeah, and I've seen that more management agreements are putting that into the language that they want to have someone who has a designation, such as the CPM, and it's providing more opportunities for them as well to acquire the business over a company that may not have someone to fill that position. So I think that's definitely a great opportunity. The most important thing that I learned from my mentor was that it's achievable, getting your CPM designation. Someone who believed in me and had achieved it, and this is how they did it, and they presented it, and I knew that I could do it at that point. I had a plan, an action plan, and all I need to do was to achieve it.
It's not something that you jump into and you're not sure about. It's not easy, and it's not supposed to be, but the value that comes behind it really is something that will help you grow your career. It's not something that you should just do because it sounds like the next best thing.
I see some people who do think of it in that way, and it's definitely something that you need to commit to and understand the benefits of it and what you're doing with it, how you're going to apply it.
If it's something I think they're considering going after, I think going to one of the informational sessions that gives you all the details about really what it takes and what's expected of you as a candidate or a member that's going after this, I think it will wholeheartedly make your decision for you.
I agree.
All right, so that was just a couple of our members really talking about their experience with the scholarship program and with our mentor program. Not every chapter has a mentorship program, and we have a mentorship program. What we have experienced is a lot of people trying to get their CPM who don't want to ask for any help. They don't want to ask for a mentor. I can do it myself. And 3 years later, they're kind of not. So don't hesitate to reach out and say, hey, is there someone I can talk to? Is there someone I can walk through this process with? Because it can make a big difference. Is your employer a CPM? Could that be your person? Do you have a coworker? Is there someone you've met at a luncheon? These are really important. They're your person on the staircase that's going to go, you can do this. Just a few more steps. You can do it. All right. So that is our, my little clicker here. This is what happens when we're live. All right, so that is really all of our education. We're going to move on now to experience. For the CPM designation, you've actually got to have some property management experience. If you're taking the courses, if you start taking the courses and you have no experience, spread those courses out for 3 years. But make sure you understand the experience, because Irem does not joke around with their boundaries and expectations. So if they say, for a residential property manager, you need to be managing 200 units at 1 to 4 sites over a course of 36 months, that's exactly what they mean. They don't mean 196. There were a couple of people who went through all of their education and threw out their experience, and they said, well, I was at 196, that's close enough. No, you just took all your classes, you just spent all this money, and you don't qualify. So very serious about this. Experience as a property manager. Now, you might say, look, Jody, I am a property manager, but my boss refuses to call me a property manager. We're going to get into that because Irem has caught on to that and knows a way to be able to figure out exactly what your role was there as well. So, for our experience, if you're a residential property manager, you've got to have 36 months of property management, managing 200 units at 1 to 4 sites or 100 units at 5 or more sites. That experience does not have to be consecutive. It's cumulative. So you might say, look, I started property management 20 years ago. I worked for, 2 years for this company, and then I deviated, and now I'm coming back. Does that 2 years managing 200 units at 1 to 4 sites still count? Yes, it does. You can jump back in and you can add it all up. It's cumulative, so it doesn't have to be consecutive. If you're a commercial real estate property manager, you have to manage 120,000 square feet at one site or 80,000 square feet at 2 or more sites. And it has to be 36 months, okay? And you can't say this. You can't say, okay, well, for 1 year, I managed 80,000 square feet. And the next year, I managed another 40,000 square feet. So now I'm at 120. It has to be 120 for 3 years. That's not cumulative. If you're industrial, you have to manage 200,000 square feet at 1 or more sites. And 3 years is key. And then you have to have competencies. Irem has a list of competencies, 36 of them. These are tasks that property managers should know how to do. They only require that you master 19 of them because property management is it's a very personal job. For some owners, you might do a CAM reconciliation. For others, you may not. So it would be unfair to say only people who do this competency can get their CPM. So they have a list of 36, and of that 36, you need to be able to say you have mastered 19 of them. And that is how they get around look, I know I'm the property manager. My boss will not acknowledge that I'm the property manager. So my title is assistant to the property manager. But I've been doing the job for 10 years. So the competencies are really important. It is really important that you report your experience at the first point that you think you have met that experience requirement. I like to recommend that because it's a huge, huge burden and concern off your mind. Get it approved. That way, if they come back to you and say, we're not really too sure if you met the competencies, or we're not really too sure that you actually managed the right number of units for the right months, you still have time to course correct your application. You have time to go, okay, I need another 6 months. I still have 6 classes to take. I can get that, no problem. So report it as soon as you have it. Some people will wait until the very last minute. Those are my gamblers. I would not do that. I would make sure and get it submitted. And you can submit it through the irem.org. Go to your portal, and you can print out those competencies, and you can submit it there. So that is the experience, and that separates this designation from other real estate designations. You can't just take a class to the designation. You've got to also know your stuff. All right, so that is experience. We'll move on. I don't know why this lovely little thing is. We're going to move on to candidacy. In the Irem organization, there are membership levels. You can join as an associate. You can be a CPM candidate, or you can be a CPM. For Irem National, they want you to be a CPM candidate for 12 months before you can become a CPM. You do not have to be a CPM for the 12 months prior to getting your CPM. You don't have to be a candidate prior. Just somewhere in your history, you've got to have 12 months as a CPM candidate. That's if you have no other Irem designation. Some of our ARM designees, some of our ACOM designees have decided that they want to add CPM to their list of designations. If you have another Irem designation, you still need to be a CPM candidate, but just for one day. So they need you to work through the system. You may only have to be a candidate for one day, but you do have to be a candidate. All right? So 12 months, that gets people stopped up. I've had more people go, oh no, I moved really quick to take these classes because I was unemployed and it was a great time to take the classes. I thought I'd get my CPM. Nope, you've only been a candidate for 6 months. But good for you for getting your classes done. Next 6 months is going to be just waiting for that time to pass so that you can get your designation. All right, now we're going to move up to approvals and other things. This is an interesting thing. From a chapter perspective, Irem wants the chapter to sign off on your application to be a CPM. And we do it a couple different ways. When you send in your experience, the chapter president is going to review your experience. They're going to make sure it all looks good and makes sense, and then they're going to call you and have a conversation. It's just going to be a conversation. It's not a test. And they're going to confirm that everything is pretty hunky-dory with your application and you are qualified to move forward with your experience. They sign off on it and they send it back to Irem National. The second approval is the CPM approval. That's after you've had all your education, you've got everything done. Now you just need the final stamp of approval from the chapter that you can move forward and get your CPM designation. So the president of the chapter will really have two places where they are going to be active in your application. If you're sending in your experience separate from your CPM application, they'll have two separate opportunities. That's how I recommend it, really. You don't want to get to the end and have someone questioning your experience. That takes a little time. So if you've got a timeline, if you're like, man, I've got this vacation planned, I've got this vacation planned, I'm going to send in my CPM application tomorrow and it's going to be approved by next Monday. It's not. They're going to process it at Irem headquarters. They're going to send it over to our chapter. Our chapter has 30 days to approve it, get it back to them. So it is going to be a minimum of 30 days from the time that you submit it to have that final. If you're looking for whether or not your applications have been approved, maybe you've submitted your education or your experience, all you have to do is go onto your portal at irem.org and you can follow your education, you can follow the approvals, you can see everything that's pending. So that is visible to you. All right, now we're going to talk about things fitting perfectly into other things. This is our kind of what I like to call our kitchen drawer of the CPM process. First thing is you're going to need 3 confidential letters of recommendation. Those letters of recommendation, 2 of them can be any combination of former or current employers or clients or CPM members. And the 3rd can be from anyone. So 3. Here's what happens, and again, this has been a discussion on the national level, the best way to do this. Right now, you have to give them a piece of paper to fill out, put in a sealed envelope, and send back to Irem. Your manager may or may not get to that letter. Your manager may lose that letter. You may start to feel uncomfortable going to your manager every 3 or 4 days and going, hey, did you get to that letter? My solution, don't look for 3, look for 9. Who are your 9 people that can do a letter of recommendation for you? Send out 9 letters, 3 of them will cover you. That way you don't have to be going to those same 3 people over and over again asking, where's my letter? Because that can just be awkward. All right? So get your 3 letters of recommendation. You can do that at any time. Don't wait until you're at the very end. You've completed your education, you've submitted your experience, you've finished your capstone, and now you're just waiting to get your CPM, and the 3 people you've asked to do letters of recommendation now at the very end aren't responding. Get your letters out of the way. That's an easy thing. Second is you have to attend 2 chapter events in the 12 months prior to getting your CPM. This is the other one that will stop people up. They come out of the woodwork and go, oh, you know, I did my education out in other states. I took my CPM across the country, and hurrah, I just filled out my application. Will you as a chapter approve me to be a CPM? And then I've got to call them and have that awkward conversation that says, well, actually, we haven't seen you in 5 years, and you're supposed to do 2 events in the last 12 months. So now the chapter has to hold on to their designation until they can make it to 2 events. That's awkward for everybody. Don't do that. Instead, just get engaged. Really, there is so much value to just getting engaged that 2 chapter events should be nothing. That should be a non-issue. The next one is you have to keep current with your annual national and chapter dues. Irem they require that you be a member of your local chapter. And if you're not up to date on your local and national dues, you will not get your designation. So that's a big part of being a part of the organization. So you have to make sure you're up to date. Had to have that conversation too. It's just not, these kitchen drawer things, they're just awkward. We want to avoid them. And then you must maintain a real estate broker's license if it is applicable. In the state of, and it's different from state to state. In the state of Colorado, if you manage third-party property, you have to have a broker's license. So Irem is going to trust on the honor system that you know whether or not you need a license, and that is one of the things that the chapter president is going to ask you when she calls you or he calls you for that final CPM approval. And I just had one get held up last week because they couldn't make the connection for her to confirm whether or not she had the broker's license. And she wanted to hear it. So it's a really important thing. So those are the other things that are very meaningful. Before I go on to this next video, I want to talk about engagement. There are people who have said to me, oh, you want me to come to 2 meetings because you just want the chapter to be able to make money. I wish that were the case. that is not my budget situation. The reason they want you to come to events is because connection to your peers, connection to other people that can help walk you through a problem, other people that can help give you ideas, other people that can help inspire you to be better at your job is a fundamental part of Irem. So that's why they ask for that. So we'll watch this next video. The Irem Greater Denver chapter connects real estate managers to the kind of professional support they simply can't get anywhere else.
What attracted me most about the CPM program was the credential that it gave you as a manager. You could have your MBA, or you could have your undergraduate degree, you could have many years of senior management experience, but until you had the initials after your name, until you had that credential of education from the Institute, you were just one of the regular property managers, even if you had your MBA. The moment you were able to put that credential behind your name, put you above the rest. I think that was the most fascinating part about Irem to me, was getting to meet the various levels of people throughout that training process. And with your credential, you're it. Irem offers these fantastic, at least the local chapter, offer these fantastic luncheons that we get to go to on a regular basis where there's a guest speaker. For me to be able to sit down and talk to either a vendor or one of my colleagues or someone in the business and ask them about what they would do in this situation or if they've ever had this happen to them again for an hour and then listen to a guest speaker over a medium rare filet mignon, that's wonderful. So that networking component is fantastic. Well, the reason I like the work-life empowerment luncheons is that it's so different than any other organization. There's a little bit of business element when it comes to the chapter that we get to listen to what's happening. Everyone gets pinned at that luncheon. We get these speakers that are fantastic. They're really local or regional speakers that we get to listen to. The other part is that we're not sitting around a bunch of vendors trying to get our business. We're in there with a limited number of vendors. We're in there with our colleagues and the people that are in our profession to be able to discuss and network. And that's really what it's about, I think. My favorite speaker was Brandy Duncan. She survived that 9/11 attack. And for her to tell that story was incredible. It was a huge motivation. Experiencing something so tragic and then coming back for it and bouncing back. I think that those are experiences that can be shared and can be uplifting and get us out of our normal day-to-day routine.
All right, so one of the key things I want you to walk away with is understanding that with Irem, you are going to get out of it exactly what you put into it. And we have members that actually, they have no intention of getting involved. They want their designation, they're going to pay their dues, and they're happy with that. And we're happy they're happy. I think they're really missing out. And for those members that get in and get engaged, I think they understand a greater value to their designation. So consider that as you move forward in your journey. All right, now we're going to talk about how much. I feel like we're selling cutlery or something here. But we have to talk about how much, don't we? It's the first question I always get asked. Hey, I'd like some information on how to become a CPM. Great. How much is it going to cost? First question. The answer to that question is really hard to find online. And I am going to make it very easy. So we're going to talk about how much. We're live. There we go. All right. There are different kinds of payments that you're going to make throughout the process. Some of them will come as a shock if you're not prepared for them. So we're going to talk about all of them. We're going to make sure you understand when and how this money is going to get paid, what it's going to be covering. All right? So for application fees, if you want to be a CPM candidate, it's going to cost you $160. If you're an ARM or an ACOM, it's only going to cost you $80. If you CPM fast track, it's going to cost you $800 in addition to the $160 or whatever you pay for the CPM candidate. It's $800. Again, you can take all the courses online that you don't have to take at no cost. The CPM application fee is $210 and the ARM application fee is $80. Come over here and talk about Irem education. All the CPM courses, if you got in on the early bird discount, would be $5,674. Now that is today, people, that is April of 2017. These numbers change. They change every year. So it's your responsibility to go onto the Irem website and figure out what those updated numbers are. But as of today, $5,674 would buy you all of your education. If you were a fast tracker and all you took was the capstone and ethics course, it would cost you $1,750. If you were a fast tracker and you decided, I really want to take that asset track live, it's going to cost you $3,278. For membership, and these membership numbers reflect the Greater Denver chapter local dues. So if you're watching online and you're not from Denver, these numbers won't be accurate because your chapter may charge more or less, depending on where you're from, for their local dues. But for Denver, a CPM will pay $870 a year. A candidate is going to pay $695 a year. An ARM is going to pay $320, an ACOM $300, and an associate $220. The CPM cost of $870 includes the mandatory membership to the National Association of Realtors, because Irem is under the umbrella of the National Association of Realtors. And as such, the National Association of Realtors requires that all Irem members be at the minimum an associate member. I think that's $105, $110 a year. So that's included in that $870. If you are a member of the National Association of Realtors in another way, that would make it so that you wouldn't have to pay that $105. They just want to make sure you're a member. All right? This is where I want to talk about the associate membership, the $220 a year. That's a lot less than what everyone else pays. But an associate member can apply for any scholarship. An associate member gets the same member benefits and access to everything at Irem National that any other member has access to. So this is where I have the conversation with potential CPMs and say, how long do you think it's going to take you to get your designation? If you're at the very beginning of the process and you still have experience that you have to gain, be an associate. Pay the $220 a year, get a discount on all your education, apply for scholarships, and save that money, because soon enough, you're going to be paying $870 a year. So save the money while you can. That requires you to plan, however. You've got to go, okay, I've been an associate for 3 years. Next year, I'm going to get my CPM. You want to make sure you convert that to a CPM candidate in time to get your 12 months of CPM candidacy before you get your CPM. There are a lot of chapters out there that don't encourage their members to use that associate. And the reason they don't is because you don't have to pay local dues. That's one fee that goes to national, and you're good to go. And I want to reiterate again that the Greater Denver chapter is looking really at the big picture. We want to know, what do you need and what's going to be the most effective way for you to get your designation? And if it's holding on to some of that cash so that you can put it toward classes, let's hold on to the cash and put it toward classes. So don't forget about that associate member. All right? So that's the money. That's the big money slide. That will allow you to prepare with whatever you need financially. It also allows you to have a conversation with your employer, because that's what the employer is going to ask. What is this going to cost? And quite honestly, when I went through and did all of these costs, it was more affordable than I had really thought, especially if you're taking the classes online and your local chapter offers classes that you don't have to travel for. All right. So that is everything that is included in the CPM process. We've taken you from the first step to the last step. We've covered just about everything we can think to cover. I am going to share 2 more things with you. You've got all this information. Now, what do you do with it? Because it's a lot. And what I like to say is, I don't want your experience here this morning to be like a 1980s revival, where you walk out feeling completely renewed and energized until you get in your car. We're not going to do that. We're going to send you out with a practical tool that's going to help you get started. So here in the classroom, we have a document that I've printed out and handed everyone. And this document, along with all of the marketing materials that our in-class attendees have, can be found on the Irem Greater Denver website. So if you go to Irem Greater Denver and you go to the Join tab, under the Join tab it says How to be a CPM. I'm all about being clear. How to be a CPM. Click on that tab and you're going to find the ability to download this document, and you can download it in Excel. The Excel document is actually formatted and programmed so that you can select which path you want to take. That path will kind of light up. And then the Excel document can be your tracker. This document allows you to say, okay, am I going to fast track? If I'm going to fast track, what designation am I going to fast track with? It allows you to go through and check off when you have completed any of the necessary courses, and it will tell you which courses are necessary based on the path that you choose. It allows you to put in a date when you would like this to be done. I am a backwards planner, so I always like to start at the bottom. When would you like your CPM? And then work your way to the present. If you want your CPM by June of next year, you got some work to do. You need to be putting in some dates. You need to be making sure you get things done. And this is a single-page planner that allows you to be able to do that. If you have a question about how to use it, you are free to get in touch with me, and I can walk you through it. But it actually is the form. This form was originated with our mentorship program. Our mentors had this form, and this was the form that our mentors would use with the mentees to say, okay, what do you want to do? What's realistic? And if you put down your date of getting your CPM for June of next year and you work your way up and you're like, oh my gosh, that means I need to take like 8 courses in the next 6 months, then you might find out real quick that your goal might not be realistic. This allows you to set a realistic goal. So hop online, you'll be able to download it. You also will be able to download the slide deck as well. So that is on there, and all of these marketing materials. Because if you don't have a goal, if you don't come up with a plan, you're going to sit in the rocking chairs at the bottom of the fall. You're going to be in the rocking chairs. So come up with a plan. That's the first step. All right, so I have one more video I'd like to share with you. Find out why top property managers in the Denver metro area value Irem's CPM designation.
I think a lot of us fell into this position in property management. There wasn't necessarily a college of property management as a master's or a major in school. So that was where I thought the CPM designation and going on to get that was important for me because I had to learn more about the business.
I think one of the things that is intriguing about the CPM, Irem has a code of ethics that they really stand by. They don't just say, hey, this is something that you need to do or think about and it's a good thing to do.
Take the class.
It's not just a check mark.
Right. I mean, you go through a specific class on it, but then when you become a CPM, you are held to that accountability. So I think it kind of takes it to a whole nother level that it's not just a good thing to do, but no, we're serious about it. So when you wear that pin, I think those in the industry and those that you work with, employers, companies, know that with the CPM there, hey, we know what we're going to get because they're held to that high standard.
I remember walking into one of the luncheons and just looking around and looking at all these property managers, different levels of experience, and many of them CPMs, right? And I'm thinking, wow, these guys are top property managers. I definitely want to be part of that team.
I happened to volunteer for an event that my company was doing, and I met our chapter leader, and she kind of sat me down and talked to me about what Irem was in the CPM program. And the more we talked about it, the more excited I got. And similar to Madeleine's experience, just to walk into that first luncheon and see all of those property managers and the CPMs, and then the network that is service partners was pretty amazing to me, and I felt very comfortable and very welcomed. And
I know some of my best colleagues in the business and mentors and role models have been Irem leaders, and they've been people like you. When I first got into business, I looked up to and said, "Boy, I really admire what they're doing."
Right.
And, to this day, still work with a lot of them.
Why would I not want my CPM?
Why would you not want your CPM? I don't know. So that is how we connect all the dots. We have 3 people watching online, and they have been very patient and very good with their questions, and we are so excited you're with us today. But I am now going to open it up for any questions that still remain on your sheet that I have not covered at some point during the presentation. Nada? Is that a sign I've given you more than you ever wanted?
In a good way.
So what will happen is you'll get out, our friends online will click off and they'll get on with their day, and they'll go, oh, you know what? I did have a question. So that will happen, and you are invited to please email me with any questions you have. My email is Jodi, Jodi, @iremdenver.org. And I will answer any and all of your questions. And if you want some help getting started, if you want some help coming up with a plan, if you'd like to be linked to a mentor, please reach out and let us get you started in the best possible way on your journey. Thanks for joining us.